Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 50. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Cerberus is an organization that truly puts the athlete first and is actively working towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus has quickly evolved into a global brand symbolizing quality and trust. Their ever-growing product range is used by the top athletes around the world at the highest level of competition. And every single Cerberus Strength product has been designed with performance in mind with the highest attention to detail. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Coach Tom Evans. Tom is an assistant strength conditioning coach at the University of Delaware. He oversees the training for the women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse teams, in addition to assisting with the football program. Prior to arriving at UDel in 2017, Evans was an assistant strength coach at Elkin Sports Performance in Richmond, Virginia. In addition to Evans' coaching experience, he's been an extensive athletic background in both team and strength sports. He's gone from offensive lineman at the University of Richmond to earning a spot on the Green Bay Packers for the 2017 preseason. And following his football career, he began competing in Strongman and has just earned his professional Strongman status this year after finishing second at Strongman Corporation's national championship in the super heavyweight class. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Tom Evans. What's going on, everybody? I'm excited today. I'm joined by a fellow coach and strongman competitor and newly professional strongman athlete. What's going on, Tom Evans? How's it going, man?
Good, Coach. How about yourself?
Hey, doing great. I'm excited. We got to link up finally and get a chance to talk. And like I said, congrats, first of all, on earning your pro card officially as a professional strongman.
Thank you very much. Really fortunate. Had a lot of help along the way. Definitely look forward to keep competing and, hopefully solidify my names with the big dogs in the sport.
Definitely. Yeah. You guys stay in your weight class. I'll stay in mine. Hey, I do want to get into that stuff a little bit later, but I really want to start kind of from the beginning. What really got you involved in the strength game and then kind of led you to now competing as a strongman?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start. I played football at the University of Richmond from 2012 to 2016. My grandfather was a high-level football player. My uncle was a high-level football player. They both played at the University of Florida, actually. So actually was born down there and familiar with their visits sometimes. So I always want to be a football player. Always want to be a professional football player. Got out of high school. Extremely fortunate to go to the University of Richmond, recruited by Coach Rocco, Coach Trott, and had a really hard freshman year. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever experienced. And going through like the freshman Fridays and the whole bit. I could lift. I've always been able to lift, and we started lifting BFS, what they call it in North Carolina, in high school. But conditioning, man, I was terrible. I'm still pretty bad. It works for strongman now a little bit better. But once we got through that freshman year, I really started to fall in love with the weight room under head strength conditioning coach, Coach Stewart, Coach Stu, as we call him, as well as assistants Jeff Appel and Beecher Porter. Really developed a relationship with those guys. Some of those guys are still at Richmond. Others have moved on since. But I was like, I really like this component of football. it's kind of obvious for an offensive and defensive lineman. I was strictly an offensive lineman, like the importance of football. So that was an easy transition for me in the beginning. So I started, I was actually a business administration major. Richmond does not have anything close to exercise science, at least last time I checked. The closest thing would have been pre-med. And I wasn't smart enough for that. So we went business administration, some general. And then my junior year, I was like, okay, I do want to be a strength coach. I want to play football. But if things don't work out, I want to stay around sports. And it's something I excel at. So I started working at Elkin Sports Performance in the private sector. Coach Elkin knew Coach Stewart from way back, developed a relationship with him. I got to intern with him for one summer and then work for him the next summer while we were in Richmond training. All our guys had to find like internships. There really wasn't a lot of class opportunities. So that was kind of my thing. I'd work out in the morning and then go train anywhere from middle school to high school kids at Elkin Sports Performance. And that's what I was like, okay, I'm starting to get my feet under me a little bit. I really have an appreciation for this. And I think I knew that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. But I always had planned to play in the NFL. Now my grandfather stressed me at a young age, always have a backup plan, because as hard as you want to play, as much as you want to play, like you can have an injury like that, or it doesn't work out, or X, Y, Z. So, once I graduated from Richmond, kind of put the strength and conditioning aside to a sense. But I lost my train of thought. Apologies. Started working on pro day stuff. And for my pro day, I didn't go down to Florida and go to facility or out in Arizona. I was guided by Coach Fitzgerald, who was at Houston at the time. He had connections with my agent and handed me a program. I tweaked and modified and self-filmed. So I got to I used another coach's program, but then worked through, like coaching myself, and pretty much did almost all the pro day training by myself. I was living now with my uncle in Alabama. Used a high school weight room in a field and did it. I was trying to push everything forward. There was a retired offensive lineman that played in the league that was down there, coaching me through some of the offensive line stuff. But as in terms of like the pro shuttle, 40 weight room stuff, I was all on my own from a sense. So that's where I started to get a little bit more appreciation for it. I'm okay, there's stuff besides just lifting weights. There's technicalities to all this pro day training type stuff. And then I was very fortunate, got picked up after the 17 draft with the Green Bay Packers. Had an awesome experience there. I was there from May until the final cuts in September. And that was, I can't speak enough for how awesome that experience was. Met some great guys, got to hang out with Bakhtiari, Aaron Rodgers, Balaga, Luke Patrick's is still there. We just NFL schedule's kind of easy. I don't know if they tell you that, but like during the summer, you work 3 days, you get a day off. And when in Green Bay, Wisconsin, you gotta go fishing, right? So we hang out with some of the guys. We go fishing all the time. And I still had an appreciation for strength and conditioning, developed a good relationship there. Got in trouble for trying to go too heavy. Sometimes I still do that. But had a really good experience there. I was really optimistic that it would work out for me. Don't know if I would have been a 53-man roster right away, but definitely thought I had an opportunity for a practice squad spot. Ended up not working out. Still hurt about that. It's a little bit of a touchy subject for me, but it didn't work out. So we're driving around Wisconsin, heading back to Richmond with where I live with my now wife, Anna. She actually came up to the last game, and she was with me when I got cut and dealing with all that. But we called two people to start off with driving back to Richmond because we don't know what the hell we're going to do at this point. And I called Coach McCorkle, my offensive line coach, who was at the University of Delaware at the time, because him and Coach Rocco and Coach Stewart, the strength coach, and all head up to Delaware, where Coach Rucker was the head coach. So I called them. So I need something to do. And then I called Coach Stu and was like, I want to start volunteering for you. So I volunteered, and he was like, all for it, come on. We moved up to Delaware, I think, within like 2 weeks. So I kind of jumped in the flow midway through September. It was kind of weird. I remember it was right before we played JMU because I got all fired up about that. Still do until they're moving up now. But we got up here. Now I was still trying to pursue the NFL at the time, and I wasn't certified. So I would like working as basically an intern, volunteer, try to do as much as I can, with staying in the proper parameters as an uncertified guy could. So at the time, after that season, and then the 2017 season, I started studying for my CSCS. I had like an online class sort of thing, read through the book, getting ready for my test. And while I was volunteering in Delaware and while I was still pursuing the NFL. So this takes us to like May 18, studying for the test, finally get certified May 18th. And then a week later, I get a call from the Redskins, the Washington football team. And we get to, for a mini camp, try out, gave that a go. I got thrown in at center right off the bat. And I worked on my snapping, but I felt that you practice it so much, but you got to get some game type scenarios. And I remember as we were preparing for that, I was snapping to Coach McCorkle. I was snapping to Coach Stu. I come out to practice early, and when the quarterbacks are getting their arms warmed up, I snap to the quarterbacks. And when the the Washington football team didn't work out, about the same time I watched the movie Born Strong. And then once I knew I didn't make the team in 18, I was like, okay, football's done. It's time to do something else. And I've always loved lifting, and I've always hated running myself. So a strongman seemed like a good fit. So I became, I was certified at that point, volunteered throughout the summer, got into like a part-time assistant role. As I was starting to compete in strongman, had my first competition in Delaware Strongest in April 2019. And immediately fell in love with it. And I got my butt kicked by Manny Frias, who is now a professional strongman as well. He was a year ahead of me. And he's a lighter guy. He was like 295 and he kicked my butt. I was like, wow, I did not think there were this many strong people in Delaware. I am sadly mistaken. But it was a good experience. And then I got to see in strongman, like how much camaraderie there is in the sport. And very different than football, where I was the football player that was like, all right, you're lining up against me. I want to like bury you in the dirt and put you in the freaking sideline and for you not to come back in the game. Very aggressive. Like, I got myself in trouble sometimes. That was my mindset when I played. And strongman, it's like, I don't want you to get hurt. I want you to do as well as you can, but I want to get one more rep or 5 more pounds or whatever it is. But there's like, because you know how much it takes to go into that, because as much as like really any collegiate sport, you all this time practicing, all this time running, all this time in the weight room for this like 11 games or about 20 games of lacrosse or all this time put into those games. With strongman, it's even worse. It's all this time for this 5-hour meet. And especially I didn't compete but once every 3 months when I started, because that's what I felt comfortable with it as I was trying to progress through. And actually got to go to nationals my first year. That was my third competition, was nationals. And it was the year that it got moved from Florida. I was supposed to be in somewhere in north of Miami. I forget. One of the smaller towns, but and then it got moved to Iowa, and luckily it fell on the bye week. But but I still got to go. I was doing pretty good. I actually had the first 2 events. I had a decent shot of getting an Arnold qualifier, and then I tore my groin pretty good, black and blue the whole bit. But was able to wrap it up the next day, and was able to finish the yoke, and was able to get 1 rep on the stone in the shoulder. Extremely painful, but I was able to finish the competition. And finished, I think, 5 points behind on a qualifier. So that was an awesome experience besides tearing my groin, but that was like my first taste. Like, okay, this is like the big leagues, and not just the smaller meets. Kept competing. And then my 3rd nationals this past year is where I achieved my pro status. But that's kind of where I'm at now. I got to, actually, I was fortunate enough to compete in America's Strongest without a professional status. They allowed some amateurs to compete through an online qualifier. And then at that moment, that's where I kind of felt like, all right, I can get national. That was 2 weeks before nationals this year. And I was like, all right. And I finished 5th. And I was hanging with them in a lot of events, hanging with the big time pros, such as Tyler Cotton, Marcus Crowder. And just hanging with those guys, I'm like, okay, I got nationals this year. Didn't get first, but was very excited to finally achieve that pro status, where, you feel like you've been working on forever, but realistically, I only trained strongman since the summer of 2018, and I got it in October 21. And I know that path is not common for everybody, but very, very fortunate for me. I had a lifting background kind of going into it, because when I played football, I was the meathead that always wanted to squat it more, and hated when coach put any kind of volume in the workout. I just wanted the 1 rep squat and clean all the time. So really the things I had to work on the most were deadlifting, and then the obscure stuff. Overhead kind of came pretty natural to me, but I had to spend a lot of time with that. Overall, I really enjoy it and still love to keep competing. That's for sure. It's kind of where we're at now.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's cool to see all that stuff. I'm not a big proponent of conditioning, even though I'm in a lighter weight class. It's not my cup of tea either.
And that's why we do strongman. You go really hard and take a 10-minute break.
Yeah, I mean, I cringe when I see 90-second time limits. 75 seconds is already too much. 60 is pushing it too.
60 is brutal, especially. I wish the weight would be heavier. If it's hard when it's a minute and then you got to get 7 reps to win. Or 6 reps.
Double digits. No.
Yeah, I'm like, why can't we just do pick a weight where 4 is going to win?
For sure. No, it's cool though when you talk about it, because you haven't been competing for very long, like at least in strongman, but you've had such a extensive background, like in team sports and strength training and everything coming up, and preparing for pro day and taking 2 opportunities like to solidify yourself like in the NFL and get on a roster. And like it's cool because we were going to talk about like the next question was like talking about like kind of how your unique path to strength conditioning, but it was already intertwined in what you were saying. Like everything you were doing, like during the time, like Fitz gave you that program and you were kind of tweaking it yourself, and you were starting to learn some of the stuff that coaches were giving you. And I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, did you kind of already have like coaching as in like your grandpa said, like that like you have a backup plan. So you were already thinking about coaching as a backup plan after, if the NFL didn't pan out.
Yes. Yeah. With working with the private sector during the summers, and then leading a team, I was a 2-year captain. That kind of gives you a more of a leadership, more of a kind of a coaching position. I would argue that we had one of the best offensive lines my last year. And I think Coach McCorkle would say this too. We were like so self-coaching and helping the younger guys out, like the whole older 5 in the room, that like the room could have ran itself. And I think that's part of the reason we had some of the success we did. I know it's hard to come by offensive line credit unless it's coming from an offensive lineman, but I still feel that way. I think those in the program at the time would agree.
For sure. If you got a good quarterback too, they should give you some props as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, so what like from your time training, like both at Richmond and then getting ready for the combine and now like kind of working into a strongman career, what's kind of like one of the biggest takeaways that you've been able to take away from like this experience competing at like the top level for all these sports? I mean, you're trying to get to the top level of American football, the top level of strongman now, earning your pro card. Like what's been a big takeaway either like from your training or like from the mindset from your training?
I think discipline is so important. It's like the motivation versus discipline aspect. I've done so much training until, kind of recently, strongman training, pro day training, just general football training by myself. Because even when we go back home, like during breaks at Richmond, there was not many other people training in the area. Eventually I had somebody to live with, but it's not like I went back and went to a private facility where there's 5 college guys working out. So I've always had to train by myself to an extent. Now that's changed for me a little bit. I can kind of go into that. But your ability to hold yourself accountable is crucial. If you know this is what I got to get done, this is what I got to get done. It's so easy to take reps off or, have to do the workout. But it's like as coaches, we talk about it all the time. And I'm a fellow lacrosse coach, right? We're always talking about do the freaking winter packet. Please be ready to go when you get back. And that's something that like I took pride in myself, the ability that I was showing up ready to go. I didn't take much more time off than prescribed. I'm not saying I was perfect. And I think it's really hard, especially when you're training by yourself. It's one of the hardest things you can do. There's nobody there to help you. You got to learn to, if you're benching, you got to get that rack set up right. I think that made it so when I do have people around, it's so much easier. And now I got training with me, one of our previous interns who's now been hired as an assistant strength coach, Noah Lockwood and Marshall Lane. Both those guys working with us where Noah would do some of the lifts with me. He's an old thrower. So he's like, I need something to do. I'm like, strongman for you. You jump in. He's probably on the lighter side of the heavyweights. But I'm trying to talk him into doing a novice competition here soon. But he's been training with me. And then Marshall Lane, who operates as like our liaison between like athletic training and strength and conditioning. So he does a great job of taking our guys that aren't in the training room, but they're not ready for full lift and transitioning them. So he's kind of helped me out with the same stuff. I've been pretty fortunate in the injury regard, but he's always very critical of my technique if I ask him to watch. He's not doing the lifts with me, but he's right there lifting next to me, able to help out. I'm like, I got deadlift max today. These guys they're loading the plates up for me. They're helping me out. They're getting me in the deadlift suit. I can't be grateful enough for those guys. Coach Stewart will help me out. He'll come out and pull him out of his office sometimes. We're like, Coach, can you watch this? And they're locked in to help me out, especially when I'm like, okay, I'm attempting a 400-pound log or something today. They'll the whole staff will kind of come around and support me with that. So that's pretty special. I'll even have some athletes kind of third round open hours. They'll come help me out with my lifts. New facility helps out. Everybody wants to lift in that thing, so people are always around. But there's a really awesome support staff around here to not just help with like, our normal everyday job, but it's like, Big Tom needs some help today. They'll help me out, which I'm very, very grateful for.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to have a support team behind you, and that's cool to have like kind of that liaison position between athletic training and strength conditioning too, to kind of work with the long-term rehab guys or make sure that none of those guys are falling through the cracks as they return to play or come off a surgical procedure.
Yeah, really, really fortunate to have them.
Hey, so kind of speaking on like, obviously like training by yourself and holding yourself accountable, like those are a lot of things that like we preach with athletes a lot of times. And like you're saying, like you're lacrosse athletes, like do the winter packet. Like,
Yeah.
I was just in work and trying to get the guys to like make sure they're following the packets and they're showing up without them. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But like when we talk about individual like accountability, and a lot of times strongman, you have to train by yourself. I mean, you've been able to wrangle a few people in with you, but the job becomes so much easier after you've built kind of that fortitude of training solo. What what's some advice you would have for someone that like maybe is breaking into strongman or is just training by themselves to really kind of keep yourself accountable? Because like you said, you were doing it Richmond by yourself, you're doing pro day, like prep by yourself, strongman. I mean, you had people supporting you, but in a day in, day out basis, the only like common denominator is whether or not you do the work.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of printing that workout out and checking everything off. You either write a weight down or you got to check a box. I've done that consistently through winter packets, through pro day training. Always make sure I have something like to check off that says I completed it. And if I don't do it, I'm not checking it off. And there are some times where I probably should have pulled back and didn't do the exercise and I didn't check it off. But then if it's sitting there not checked off, or there's no weight filled in, it's sitting there bothering me for a couple of weeks. And I'm always thinking about the end goal. You know, it's a little cliche, like, okay, well, did your opponent finish their workout today, or whoever you're competing for that spot? And I've really tried to pride myself that I won't be physically outworked. That's something that comes internally for me. I'm a pretty angry lifter. And I was an angry football player. I try not to be an angry strength coach. We try not to do that too often, but when necessary. I mean, a lot of it's internal, but I think giving yourself checks and balances system. If you have somebody to check in with you that hold you accountable to, you know, say, hey, I couldn't complete my lift today because of this, or I didn't because I didn't want to, or I had a family obligation, or XYZ. You know, I'll go home every day and I'll tell my wife how my lift was every day. Okay, she'll ask, I'll send her videos. I'm not great at posting them on Instagram, but like I'll go home every day and like, yeah, my deadlift was terrible today. My back kind of locked up. Didn't hit the weight I want. So that was okay. And like talk me off the ledge a little bit. And about like, I don't know, I didn't do my lift. She's like, why? I'm like, well, we got caught up in the meeting. And she's like, okay, you're gonna do it on like Saturday or something. I'm like, yeah, we'll find a way to get it done. So you got to find somebody to at least talk about it. Stay in touch with it. Somebody that's doing the same thing, that helps. But I think, you know, that just having that piece of paper and just having somebody to communicate with will help you out a lot. So whether you're doing the day-to-day by yourself, you just got to be honest. Like I can't, you know, I'm like, Nick, I did my workout today and I didn't do any of it. I mean, then you're not going to be a high-level athlete, in my opinion. You know, you're not going to be a high-level strongman or any strength athlete for that matter, because there's no team, right? Or there's no team on game day. There's a team behind the scenes. But when you're in that moment, there's no like team that like, oh, well, you should have done your summer packet. But it's kind of the same thing for professional team sports. All right, you didn't do the work. All right, see ya. Bye. Dismiss you from the team.
That's a great point. I mean, it's nice to have your wife as like an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And check in and be honest about what you're actually doing and how you feel and stuff like that. And I've done that over the years. And I think that's one thing that really helped me too, was either like kind of check in with my old training partner, even though we're training for different stuff, even in the same sport. Mm-hmm. Or it's like really actually write down how I feel that day. Like if something was off that morning, so that like, if I can go back and look and know why I didn't check that box off, was at least I can like try to kind of question it, because you could talk yourself out of going for a heavy lift by yourself or not, or you can rationalize everything you do by yourself. And sometimes it's good so you don't die, but you don't know sometimes when to push it.
That's where, so I probably go too far. We'll just, my shoulder hurts like heck, and I'm just going to do it anyway. Then that's where Noah and Marshall really do a good job of like, all right, Tom, got national in 2 weeks. If it's not worth it to hit this weight today, but don't feel good. So, always like I'm fortunate enough that they're right there. They weren't always right there. I used to be by myself, but I've found more success in training myself. There's somebody there to have at least the conversations with. They're not going to, take the weight off the bar and make me not do it. But yeah, I would agree completely.
Hey, so we kind of talk about it like a lot of your training ends up being like in the new beautiful Delaware facility.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like just kind of obligations, like for a college strength coach, like you're pulled in so many different directions. Like you said, you've got multiple teams that not only you lead, but you also assist with and then help the staff. Like kind of how do you approach your programming and training while balancing like being a collegiate strength coach with all those responsibilities?
So we'll get into very weekly schedules where it doesn't alter too much from that. Fall's a little easier because football's always played on Saturday. When we get into lacrosse season, it gets a little more difficult with the midweek games. But I don't ever train myself more than 4 times a week. I know there's a lot of strength athletes that go like 5 to 6. It's never worked for me. I've never been able to recover that quickly if I'm training with the proper intensities. And then I will kind of plan out my semester as I get the schedule. I'm like, okay, I know I have like Mondays, I got a tremendous amount of meetings in between, like AM lifts, meetings, PM lifts. Monday, maybe not the best day for deadlift because it takes me 3 hours to complete that workout. Maybe I'll move an upper body day to that day where it only takes me an hour and a half. And then Tuesday, I have a giant gap. I have morning groups and then I have late night groups. So I got all the day in the middle. There's not a lot of meetings. Sometimes they'll come up and you got to adjust. I definitely had some meetings come up the last couple of weeks. So I'll be halfway through a workout. I'm like, all right, and I got to go. That's where not checking the box off sucks, but sometimes you go back and finish. But I'm very fortunate here where I do have the support of all head coaches that I've worked with. I've had support from the athletic director, Chrissy Raywalk. She'll even ask about my meet. She gets more fired up than when I told her like I got my pro card. She was ecstatic and she loves it. So I got athletic trainers that support it. If I've only ever really missed lifts for competitions, and I've made sure they haven't been like local ones. It would have been like nationals or America's Strongest. Coached Ben DeLuca and Amy Altaker, head lacrosse coaches. They've been extremely supportive of my aspirations to compete. So when I do miss time, like I talked about support staff before, like we're covered. Where another coach can step in and it's not an issue at all. And the other coaches don't mind doing it. It's selfishly. It's not like I'm going to a wedding or anything. I'm trying to think of reasonable reasons to miss lifts, but they've been so supportive here. People will ask me when's the next competition. So I think that's something that's really special. And I don't know how I would do it without that support. From everybody in the athletic department. I got the soccer coaches, asking me, and I don't work with them. Oh, when's the next meet? So that's been really cool for me. I think they respect how much I like to compete still. So it's a really good support system here.
It's awesome.
Do that. I know not everybody's as lucky.
No, that's a great thing to have. The team behind the team for you. It's you're the one that actually goes through all the competition and the training prep, but it makes your job a lot more fun. It makes your training a lot more enjoyable too. Like when everybody is kind of supporting you and on board with that. So that's definitely not the case everywhere. I've heard a mixed bag from everybody, and I've kind of dealt with the same thing, a mixed bag of it too. And that's definitely an awesome quality to have, like surrounding you all the time.
Absolutely.
Hey, so with your training, I know, like you talked about, with a lot of the staff that's already there, everybody is training in some sort of way. Like, why do you feel it's important, like, for strength coaches to still stay involved in training? And then, like, if your like strongman career was like ended like abruptly, like how do you think you would still would you still try to stay active in some sort of way? Does that have a tie-in to like your coaching ability?
I think it can. I don't think it has to. For me, it's a mental health thing. And I know for a lot of people like that, it's their release, right? I've always enjoyed lifting, and I think when I'm done competing, I hope to be one of those guys that still can do a full depth squat when they're 80 years old. I know a lot of people and if they're lifting just to lift and they're not training for a purpose, that I think that's fine too. I think it's, we preach the physical health, and we'd like to find time for our physical health as well. I've heard that somewhere before, where it's if you ask the athletes to train, it'd be nice if you were able to train. I don't think it's the end all be all. Because I could take it inversely, where like I have a women's lacrosse recruit come and they look at this big guy and they're like, oh my God, am I going to look like him when I'm done playing lacrosse here in Delaware? And I actually spent time talking about, like, you don't train like I train, right? There's a reason I didn't play lacrosse growing up. And I actually have to have that conversation sometimes with athletes. I'm like, you're not going to do a full strongman workout every day of the week and take 10 minutes rest in between sets. But I think it plays to how I like to coach. Part of my personality, really, my ability to compete. But I don't know if it's, I know plenty of strength coaches that they have literally no time to really train themselves, whether they may train a little bit at home or get it in when they can. I don't think, any less than anybody. It's a credibility piece, right? You get your athletes to buy in, where I could probably get an offensive lineman to buy in quickly just because the way I look, or maybe not, right? Because like I said, the opposite effect, your lacrosse athlete look at me and like, oh my God, this guy knows nothing about running. So it's kind of how you play it, but I don't think it's overly necessary. It's nice that you can rely on past experiences, but everybody has their individual experiences. And most of the time for strength coaches, they have something, whether they played college sports or they've grown up around weightlifting and running and just personal improvement, whether they do it now or not, kind of, it's nice. It's a nice bonus, but I really don't think it's the end all be all. It's kind of how you play it. All coaches have different personalities, right? So it's kind of is that part of your personality, or is it not, and kind of how you want to go about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you're right. Everybody does have different personalities, and people were brought up differently, have different paths, play different sports. They think of training in a different way. A lot of people do. Yeah, you're right. Like, think of it as mental health. And I mean, that's one way that I definitely use it, but I do like to chase a carrot. Like I like training. I do really poorly when it's just exercise. If it doesn't have a purpose, I'm losing my mind.
I agree. I'm the same way. That's one way that we're alike. We're not necessarily, everybody may be that way.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so you kind of alluded to it a little bit, and I wanted to ask, because I get the same sort of thing. Obviously, I'm not 6'7", 350, but people want to know if like they're going to be training the way that I'm training. Like, is what you do in your programming, is it copy and paste what you're going to see in my volleyball players programs, my men's soccer, my men's lacrosse?
Yeah.
But do you tie in any sort of, or incorporate any sort of strongman type training with your athletes, or like normally, or like or only if they ask, or anything like that?
Well, there are some things I will tie in. Carries and sled drag is probably the number one things. I think strongman has made me believe in the importance of a strong core and a strong back. In strongman, you can't get away with it. If your back is weak or if your core is weak, you'll be exposed and you'll probably hurt yourself. Where in team sports, right, you could probably get away with it in the most, but then you're seeing these chronic injuries, right, low back, hip issues. So I think I have, through my progression, my career, have kind of thought a little differently how I think about the core and the back. Where in some things where I'll pull, I don't even know if they're technically like powerlifting things or strongman things, but like a reverse hypers is something we've used. With our offensive linemen, we did this summer. We took a phase where our skill guys were doing a little more running, plyo, med ball work outside. We had our guys come in and we did heavy carries, pulls, push, spent some time on reverse hypers, spent a little bit more time rowing weights, pull-ups, where it's maybe not specific strongman exercises, but the principle is kind of the same, right? If you're taking a base level strongman program, you're doing a lot of core and a lot of back to make sure your erectors are in good shape to pick something awkward up off the ground or press something awkward over your head. So that would be my main thing. But I've done a lot of suitcase. Like I said, we've done a lot of farmers work, slow sled drags, fast sled drags, stuff in that manner. We have done in the past a strongman circuit to finish Fridays for football, our football players. Kind of as a fun thing. My general rule would be like when we're selecting weights, like we've had our guys do yoke. I don't know if you're going to get a crazy training adaptation out of it, only doing it once a week with a kind of safe load, because we would, if you're not a training for it, I'd say never go above ballpark at 80% of what you can handle, because we have some giant med balls we treat like Atlas stones. A good time. We get some explosion work. We get some picking up off the floor, but to me, it's learning how to brace. Or you got to brace while you walk. Now you got to brace while you pick up this very light Atlas stone. I wouldn't say we have guys picking up. It's only like a 150-pound med ball, but it's a little fun. It's something different. And our guys enjoyed it. And that was pre-COVID when we kind of had a time for it. In between these two quick seasons, we haven't been able to do it in quite some time. But to me, it's the biggest function of even the carries that we talk about that are implemented in the program is that ability to brace and not just brace and stand still in a closed chain exercise. Brace and move, keep yourself tight while you're continuing to breathe, which I think has tremendous carryover for pretty much all sports.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly like verbatim how I like to incorporate those things. I mean, carries like pushes and sled drags are probably the simplest way to do it. And it's a great way to kind of add it into any team setting. But yeah, I like what you said, like strong core, strong back. Those are things that, I mean, professional strongman that kind of come into it real quick. If you don't have that, you're probably going to drop out very quick. And like, I'll just look at like Big Z is, I don't know, in his like mid 50s probably now. And he probably has the strongest back and strongest core of anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in that big power gut. It's hidden in there, but dang, he's freaking strong. He logs up like there's nothing. It's incredible.
I mean, he created the Z press for a reason. I mean, if you can't do that, you don't have a very strong back either. Your posture is pretty bad. So
exactly.
I mean, he's probably doing something right if anybody wants to follow his cue, but
just a little bit. Just
hey, so you haven't been in the coaching profession all too long. Like so far, like collegiate stops, like Delaware's your own stop. Obviously, like being at Richmond, you were surrounded for 4 years, like in that training environment, and then working in the private sector too. But where do you kind of go for and like looking to improve and kind of like improving on the coaching side of things and like even the strongman side of things? Like what are some of your resources that you kind of, or people you lean on to like continue to stay up to date in this profession?
Well, I've leaned on in-house first. So it's spent a lot of time talking with Coach Stewart, especially for like football specific things. He's helped me grow. We spent a lot of time conferences breaking down, stuff we see from Dietz, stuff we see from Brian Mann. We do use a lot of velocity-based training and triphasic training here from that aspect. And I've used that with other teams. Coach Christina Raznick, who is now our director of sports science and analytics, she kind of taught me the ropes on like the lacrosse side of things, like how to program conditioning volume, how to look at changes, direction, things a little differently, not just, wave drill. Football conditioning in all aspects is pretty easy compared to lacrosse. And I learned that quickly. But she was definitely one of my mentors as I was taking these lacrosse programs and helping show me the appropriate way to manage these certain things. And we'll look for outside information just like anybody else. At conferences, I've spent some time on Strength Coach Network a little bit, and just kind of general information out there. And then you got to take that information, see what's practical. I like to think of myself as the practical guy. Like, all these points are great, but how the heck do we actually do this? Now with this big weight room, we can do it. But we used to train in a 30 by, I may be making up the square footage, but an incredibly small room with 10 racks. You got barbells, bands, no machines. That's it. You got some dumbbells. So my coaching background comes from a lot of simple equipment. But now we're getting to expand and use all these different things. And a lot of it is data driven. We spent a lot of time with GPS units and going through some trials there. We have our Sparta science system, manage the force velocity curve in the jumps. And then we have one of the best things I think we have is there are lead forms in every rack. So we're able to do bar velocity all the time for every athlete, which is great. So I know, at Richmond, it was like we had a couple of the standalone units at the rack. But now we're able to do it with everyone here, and we're teach the athletes to kind of manage it themselves because of the kind of what I alluded to earlier is that how many coaches, how many things can you see? How many things can the athlete do on their own versus one person running around that massive room trying to see so many athletes, and coach ain't going to see everything. So that's where some of those tools can really help out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, if you could teach your athletes to manage those things and educate them on what they actually should be doing, like that's a huge benefit because at the minimum there's one coach there, and
absolutely,
depending on how many athletes you have, it's nice to have them all understanding of what they're actually expected to do and not just kind of copy and pasting or doing exactly the lift and just going through the motions. So yep. That's cool. And I remember what the old room looked like. So it's definitely come a long way from the old facility.
Well, we'll have to get you up here to see the new weight room. It is, we are so fortunate. I can't even speak on like how much of a game changer it is from literally, there's so many things to do. We can't even think of all of them. You come up with a new idea and you forget one the other week because it's just so much versatility and our ability to train so many athletes at once. And even two full teams can fit in there at the same time, which is great. And then we just kind of split the room right down to half and then increases efficiency so much and not wasting time waiting on equipment.
Yeah, that takes one huge headache right out of the puzzle right there. And logistics aside, now you can just worry about coaching and you can now kind of be inventive and creative with the space you have more so than worrying about if something can't fit here or there's not enough space for this. It takes out some of that guesswork and some of the things that in a smaller facility or with less equipment that you would have to worry about programming. It leaves more options open for you to actually like dial things in for your team, which is cool.
Absolutely.
Hey, so like any good training session, maybe not in Strongman so much, we finish off with a good finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions. Okay. And because you and I both hate conditioning, we'll do 1 question for overtime.
All right, deal.
All right. But you can go rapid fire with these, or you could take your time. But are you ready?
I think so. I'm a little nervous now.
Now you'll be good. Hey, so first one I got for you. Biggest influence in strength and conditioning and biggest influence in strongman.
Strength and conditioning, I probably have to take the easy answer, go Chris Stewart. He was my coach, all the way through, and is still a mentor to this day, and I'm fortunate enough to work for him. And so he's known me since I was 18 years old. It's approaching 10 years now. I'm getting kind of old. Strongman-wise, I've really enjoyed Brian Shaw's stuff. I feel like he's such a genuine guy, especially when I was starting early. Like when I was just learning, okay, how do I actually get into this? I know he's like the American golden child, and it's awesome to watch him. And he's just such a genuine person. A big goal for me would be to compete at the Shaw Classic one year. That would be like, okay, I've accomplished a big goal there.
That would be awesome. That would be. I've seen the new facility that he put together for the Classic. Looks awesome. So
it's insane. It's so cool.
I'm hoping you make your way out there soon.
Me too.
Hey, so when you're not coaching and competing, what kind of hobbies do you have outside of those two? I know they take up a lot of time, but what are some of your go-to hobbies when you're not doing those?
I used to be an avid fly fisherman. I'm not so good anymore because of lack of practice. But I grew up in Western North Carolina, where it's a pretty hot tourist area for that type of fishing. Actually got a big, well, not big, but like a brown trout on my back with a little fly. And that's something I've always enjoyed doing. That's my peaceful thing. That's probably the only thing I do to relax.
There you go. Hey, so I don't know if you've given any thought. Obviously, coaching was your backup plan after the NFL and everything. But if you weren't coaching, what do you think you would be doing as a career? And if it wasn't strongman, what strength?
So you took away my other one.
Yeah, no. Hey, but if it wasn't strongman, what sport do you think you would have picked?
Ooh, all right. For the job, I think something management style. I think I work decent with people. That's kind of what I like most about coaching is the people aspect of it. Not necessarily always the X's and O's, but I really enjoy working with people. So even if it's in a business setting, since I do have a business background, I guess it's something I may have to use one day. But I definitely see something in some type of management type of thing. And then so if football's out, strongman's out, the other thought was to play rugby so I can still hit people.
Oh my God, you coming down the field and rugby is.
But I figured I would have had to get down to 270 and back to the conditioning piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit different. Just don't play sevens and you should be okay.
It's still at this moment, I don't even think I could draw across the field and for one go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's too much. Hey, so when you're setting up an ideal training day for yourself, what is your go-to music or PR song? And then what's like post strongman training best meal?
All right. So I have 2 moods. I'm not very diverse in music taste. I either like this slow country, the stuff that you won't find on the radio. I'm not big on the pop country. Like Tyler Childers, Cody Jinks, stuff like that. So that I would use that for the warm up, kind of get myself going. I know it's slow and it doesn't make any sense, but I like it for some reason. Or if it's squat day, you always listen to the sad country when you squat. And then I'll go metal for as the weight starts to pick up. 5 Finger Death Punch is one of my favorites. Bullets for My Valentine. There's a lot of the really heavy stuff that I like, but I kind of just put it on Pandora and I don't always know who's playing. And I'm just like, okay, it works for me. I've actually found, being a little superstitious, if I go out and seek a song and I'll play it before I max, I usually miss. If anything's playing, I'll hit it. I don't know.
Interesting.
Probably no correlation there, or there's correlation but no causation there whatsoever. But so I've just tried to put on Pandora and let it go. But I try not to play the really heavy metal too much in that nice weight room. There's too many people walking by.
Yeah, they don't like that for whatever
No.
reason. What about what's that post-training meal look like after like a big deadlift day?
Smoked steak reverse seared. That's probably my favorite dish. I'll ribeye, throw it on the Traeger, let it get to about 125, pull it off, cast iron, butter, garlic, just sear it real quick. That'd be my go-to. And then I probably definitely go potatoes this is a very typical Strongman meal. The only thing I'm missing is rice. And then artichoke for vegetable, because I do need a green in there.
All right.
But that's with more butter.
Oh, yeah. You got to be drenched in butter and then
exactly
on the grill. That's perfect. Hey, last one I got for you for overtime. Favorite either under the bar memory or coaching memory of yours?
That is a really good question. I just took a long pause there. Recently at America's Strongest, where the first event was a finger flip. I've never done a finger flip before. That's a lot. I've done a short one in a competition, but it was like way shorter than me. So I call it more of a tire flip. And my wife was there. My buddy drove down. This was down in San Antonio. And I knew I had a bunch of family watching the live stream. And the commentators were Anthony Furman and Rob Kearney. I had a lot of big dogs there. And I was still an amateur at this point for like 2 more weeks, but I'm like nervous out of my mind. They do a drawing for the order that you go, and I'm the third to last to go. And I smoked it. I freaking smoked it somehow. At the time I took first. And that was an amateur competing with professional strongmen. The commentators made a big deal about it. And at that moment, I kind of felt that, like, okay, I belong with the big dogs. Like, I can actually do this. I'm pretty critical on myself. I push myself pretty hard, but at that moment, I'm like, okay, something's working. Something's working. Ended up third in the event because, of course, the next 2 guys beat my time. But I was pretty happy that I got I was in the lead for a moment there. And kind of like you can hear the commentators talk about it. It was like, yeah, okay, he's proving he belongs. And that's exactly what I intended to do that day. And it was kind of that strong start to the first event. So that's a big memory for me.
That's awesome. Was that the first? That was the first event too?
The first event.
Oh.
I was about to throw up everywhere. It was bad going beforehand. But then the fingers flipped. They went over, and I was like, we got to warm up a little bit with them, but like I didn't pick up the heaviest one until the end, and I was like, and it went up. It was like, oh my god.
That's awesome. I love fingers, but I'm just so short. So when they start getting taller, it's a rough go.
Yeah, I love to get my hands on one and get it so I could like load it to see how like heavy I could go, because I'm pretty fortunate. I think I had more in the tank, but like I don't even know how you weight those things, because the plate loaded I think at the top.
Oh, that's weird.
So it's like, what does that actually weigh? I don't know. That's right. You don't know how much is that rock actually? I don't know.
No one knows unless you have a meat scale. You got to get a meat scale. That's all you got.
Yeah, the only time they know for sure is when it's a deadlift or a log. Everything else is a general estimate of what that weight is.
Yeah, you got to go down to Brute Strength in Virginia, because I know they have 3 or 4, and they do it right, because someone custom built it and they put the rebar in it so it slides all the way down, so the whole finger is even. I
gotta check that out. I've seen them. I've seen them on social media. I actually I signed up for a competition there and I had to bail out. But yeah, that looks like an awesome gym. I'm down in Virginia quite a bit. I may have to go check them out.
It's an awesome place. Yeah, I've got a few trips with lacrosse around that Virginia area, so I'm going to try to sneak over when I'm in like the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area for a game, because I love that gym. Yeah, they've got all the toys you need.
That's good to know. Well, if you guys are ever up in Delaware, I know a gym and it's got plenty of toys, so we got to get a lift in.
I know, we'll have to link up. Hey, but Tom, I really appreciate you coming on today, man. It was great to get to talk to you. For people that have any follow-up questions or want to follow you around, like during your competition journey and everything, how can they get a hold of you and follow you?
Yeah, I try to post my stuff on Instagram. Tom Evans Strongman is the handle. I'm not great with it. But if it, for strongman purposes, that's kind of where I put all my stuff. I'm on Twitter. I think it's Coach Thomas Evans. Yeah, I am terrible with posting stuff. But I'm happy to share my email if anybody, wants to reach out. Thomas58evans@gmail.com. Be the best way to reach me. I have no issues answering any questions. I love to talk shop. About anything, whether it's strength conditioning related or strongman related. But yeah, I look forward to meeting some more people. And this was an awesome experience. I can't thank you enough for having me on. And I told you before, this is my first podcast, so hopefully it came out all right.
No, it was great, man. I'm happy you were the first one on here for the strength game. So hopefully many more to come. But thanks again for coming on today, man. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Thanks again so much.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.